What's up, everybody? Good afternoon. It is still Super Bowl Sunday, and I know that most people are probably still kind of plugged into things in that way, still thinking about this game that's going to start in like 3.5 hours. As Seahawks fans, I think we're mostly just kind of waiting for it to be over so we can start thinking about this offseason because we're not too thrilled about it, but it's still a special day, so make whatever good you can out of the day. But before we get there, before we get to the game, I want to talk a little bit about another angle on the recent Seahawks coordinator hires, specifically Ryan Grubb and Scott Huff, the offensive line coach that is coming with Grubb, supposedly. So we have an offensive coordinator and an offensive line coach from UW. And in the case of Grubb, he's only been there 2 years, but Scott has been there for 7 years, I think. So every single player on that team is a player who was brought on during his tenure. So he knows as much about that Washington roster this most recent season, 2023, as anybody pretty much. And every single player on that offense, especially, and when you really want to drill down the offensive line, ran through him. So when you run into a situation like this, where you have a coach come from college football to the NFL, a lot of the time they're going to try to secure the services of some of the players that they coached, especially if their coaching tenure in college went really well, which, I mean, it did. Washington lost 3 total games across the last 2 seasons, one of which was in the national championship. So it went great. And especially for guys like Ryan Grubb and Scott Huff, it went great. Just absolutely phenomenal work from those guys. And I think there's a very good chance that they do look to add some players from Washington. Now, doesn't always work out that way. Things have to fall the right way. Pete Carroll only added, I believe, 2 players from USC to the Seahawks after he came to Seattle. I think it was Anthony McCoy, the tight end, and Malcolm Smith, the linebacker, who eventually won Super Bowl MVP. But I think that was it. Now, he was drafting some players that he recruited and didn't get, but there wasn't a big impact felt on this roster from USC graduates. So there's no guarantee it pans out that way. But I want to go through some of the players that might be more interesting to the Seahawks now because they have the former Washington OC and OL coach. And there are definitely some big names here. I'm not really going to talk about Odunze because he's going to get drafted too high almost certainly. And even if he fell to 16, I don't know if Washington would even do that because of the situation at receiver where, as of right now, they're just a little too deep and a little too good to be able to feel the full impact of another first round wideout. I don't know if they would do it. I do think that Odunze is a fantastic player, fantastic talent, and I think he's going to be successful in the NFL. But I don't imagine he's going to be there for Seattle, and I don't even know if they would do it anyway. So I'm not really going to get into that. The interesting stuff really picks up when you get down to the next guy listed here. This is the mock draft database, by the way, Troy Fatanu. This, I think, becomes the most interesting guy because he should be there at 16, but if he has a good combine, he might not be there at like 20. Like right now, he's ranked at 25. If he has a good combine, he might not be there at 25 anymore. He might be like a guy who goes around 20 or even in the teens. So I think he'll be there at 16 because he's going to move to guard in the NFL, but I don't know how much longer he'll be around after that. So he's going to be a guy who, by the time we get there, may slot in very nicely with our first round pick. He's somebody who should be a fantastic left guard at the NFL level. He was playing left tackle in college football, which led to some of his shortcomings. Not that there were that many. He was a fantastic tackle, not as good as the true blue chippers, the guys like Fashanu, Fashanu from Penn State. So he's not on that level, but he should make a fantastic left guard in this league. And if he's the option that is there at 16, I will not be surprised if Seattle prioritizes him because he's familiar with guys like Scott Huff and Ryan Grubb. So Fatanu, I think, becomes much more interesting now. Trice, defensive player, he's good, and don't rule him out if he has a really good combine at 16, I guess. But again, that's defense. Grubb and Huff, not really going to be looking at that kind of stuff with any kind of additional fervor because they focused on the offense. But Trice, I mean, obviously a very good prospect, probably going to be a first round pick. The next guy ranked here would be, this is another one that a lot of people are talking about, Michael Penix. Now, my position on Michael Penix is that I think he can be successful in the NFL. I don't think we have the infrastructure to allow him to succeed. I don't think that Michael Penix is going to succeed in Seattle as constructed right now. And if you spend a high pick on Penix, that's one less high pick you can spend on improving the infrastructure around him to give him a chance to succeed. So I have been very bearish on the idea of taking Penix because I do think you will have to take him in the first round. I know that a lot of people are saying, oh, he could be a second round pick. Some people even think he could be a third round pick, and sure, it's possible, but I suspect that by the time the smoke is cleared, he does not make it past Atlanta. Now, there is a tremendously wide range of possibilities with Penix. He could be there at 16. He could be there in the second round. Could be there in the third round, I guess. I seriously doubt that happens. He had a good enough Senior Bowl to where I feel like he's going to get somebody to roll the dice in that top 12. But there may be some interest there. I do have one commenter on my videos recently, David, who made an interesting point, basically suggesting that Michael Penix's style of play may not actually be a perfect match for Grubb's offense, even though it worked so well the last 2 years, because Penix loved to take the vertical shots, and Grubb, typically speaking, has not been a guy who loves the vertical shot. I do think that the last couple years may have educated him about the value of it, but his previous stint before working with Penix was working with Jake Haener, and Jake Haener's he doesn't have a big arm. He's not a guy who pushes the ball down the field all the time. So it might just be a situation where Penix preferred to take those shots when they were given to him, but it's not something that Ryan Grubb actually loves. He might want a quarterback who is more willing to throw it short, more willing to throw it quickly, more willing to take the safer path. So maybe, I don't know. There's some stuff here that's actually interesting that needs to be dug into. And the Penix stuff, that we could go on about that for days. So what I'm going to say is, I feel like by the time we get to the draft, he's going to go too high. But if I'm wrong and he's there at 16, that could be hard to pass up if there is a belief on the part of Grubb and Huff that they can make it work with him. And look, he's got a great arm. He does. I just wonder about some of the other things. Jalen Polk is another guy who's projected to go in the second round right now, top 50 guy. I like Jalen Polk a lot. I think he's going to be good in the NFL. But unless you have a confirmation that Lockett's on the verge of retiring, I don't think you can do it. Remember, you don't have a second round pick, so you'd have to trade up or trade way down to get him. And who knows if you'd be able to make that work. And then you make it work, and then you get a guy who might not do anything until year number 2 or year number 3. That's not really something that I'm too into. So like Jalen Polk, don't think it makes sense. Now, Jalen McMillan did not have a very good season for the Huskies. He was, I think, poised to have a monster year, but he just couldn't get healthy until the end of the year. So he's currently a third-round guy. I like McMillan. I do think that McMillan's going to be something in the NFL. I think he's going to be better than he was this most recent year. I do think his value has been hurt by the fact that he missed so much time and didn't have big production this last year. You get down in that third round, maybe he slips down to the fourth. That's something that I might be able to get behind. That's something that makes sense to me, because if you get Jalen McMillan in the fourth, and Jalen McMillan doesn't do a lot in the first year because he's behind too many guys, I mean, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. So I would say that Jalen McMillan in the fourth round, if he's there, that makes a lot of sense to me. Roger Rosengarten is a guy that I'm really going to circle the wagons around in the coming months because he's just the kind of guy that we need right now to be a quality backup behind Abe Lucas because we don't know what's going on with him right now. I don't think we can abandon him, but I don't think we can just assume he's good. A guy like Rosengarten could be really, really valuable as immediate depth behind Abe Lucas, who might be good enough to start if Abe Lucas gets hurt or can't go or whatever. So I really like Rosengarten. ZTF's another defensive player. He's an edge. I like him, but I don't know how much relevance there is. I don't know how much interest there would be on the part of Grubb and Huff. Dylan Johnson, on the other hand, very nice power back, and we are probably going to need to add another running back this offseason if we lose DJ, which I think we will. So there's definitely room for a power back in Seattle because while Charbonnet does offer some of that skill set, I don't think he has the short yardage power that a Dylan Johnson offers. As Charbonnet really, I think more than being a power back, is a third down back. So if you get Dylan Johnson in, say, round 5, or if he slips round 6, which seems reasonable because he's not super high regarded despite what Washington did this most recent season, that's something that I think could work really well. Ulo Fichot, 7th round projection, linebacker. Hampton, 7th round projection, safety. Got a defensive lineman going undrafted linebacker. Defensive lineman. There's Devin Culp down here, but he's way down here, so he's clearly projected as a UDFA right now. I mean, we do need tight ends, but the thing is we need tight ends who can actually, like, bang. We don't need tight ends who are just going to hang around on the roster and not really do that much. I don't know if I see Culp being an NFL caliber tight end, but there is one guy not listed here who might be valuable. The other tight end, Jack Westover. He's not listed here, which I think is a mistake. I don't think Jack Westover has the physical profile to be a great NFL player, and maybe not even a true tight end. But I do think he'll be better than Culp in the NFL. I do think he provides something. He's like almost an H-back. He could be like Jacob Hollister. He's got great hands. He doesn't let anything get past him as a receiver. And he's somebody who's probably going to be grinding away in the NFL as a low-level player who gets special teams reps and then a handful of reps on offense every game and finds a way to make meaningful plays. That's how I feel about Westover, and I feel like by the time we get to the draft, he should at least be ranked. I don't think he'll be drafted, but he should be a meaningful UDFA, and I would not be shocked at all if Washington made him a priority UDFA because they just know what he can do as part of that Huskies offense, and they're like, yeah, get me a high-effort guy with really good hands who has decent yard after the catch skills. So that's kind of how I'm feeling about this collection of guys. It's pretty appealing to me. It's there's got to be something here that we make work, right? There's got to be something going on with this collection of Huskies that Huff and Grubb want to bring in. All right, I'll see you guys later. Enjoy the Super Bowl. Go Hawks. Let me know what you think. There's got to be something here. Even if it's something in the late rounds or UDFA, there's got to be some Huskies that we bring back to Seattle. All right, see you guys later. Go Hawks.